Marketer of the day, number 478. Live a fulfilled life, be at your best, know your worth, and rebrand yourself with TEDx curator and business consultant Elizabeth Berry. Hey everyone, and thanks for listening. We're talking right now with Elizabeth Berry, and Elizabeth is an author, a marketing executive, and a leadership coach, and she knows all about storytelling, and she's going to tell us all about her business, her secrets, her strategies, all the great things that she thinks we need to know. So, Elizabeth, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day here overlooking New York City. Couldn't be better.
Awesome. Well, I'm so jealous, but also kind of not, because I know you guys have had some of that bad weather over there. So yeah, can you tell me about your website and what you have going on these days?
Yep. So I launched my own marketing agency 11 years ago, and I've been helping entrepreneurs, startups, and those in business for about 15 to 20 years to rebrand. Most recently, in the past 2 years, I've taken my business into more of a consultant level and a coach. So having branded entrepreneurs and people in business to better market themselves and to help them work on personal branding, I'm leaning more towards executive coaching and helping leaders communicate better, learn how to present themselves in a new light, in a new way, tell a different story so that everyone is happier in their professional and their personal lives.
Well, great. Well, I mean, I'm excited to jump into some of that. So you're mentioning here that like you help people rebrand and have a new message. So, I mean, what sort of message do they have when they come to you? Is it just like the same old tired message, or is it a message that doesn't make sense, or no message? Like, what do these people's businesses look like when they come to you?
Well, a lot of it would probably be twofold. One is they have the same message that they've been saying for years, and they just want to say something differently. And that comes from the market shifting, obviously, and from their customers changing over the years. Our customer base is consistently changing, and with technology and social media, there's so many different ways in which we can be meeting the needs of different people. So one is that they're just tired of their message, or the market shifts. Or number two, their message is so convoluted in their own language that they're the only ones that understand it. That's a biggie.
So I think I know what you mean there, and I think like I can relate to that sometimes of getting too much in my own head, being too close to it, like using some of the techie buzzwords. But can you help us understand this by like, do you have any interesting like stories or case studies about some kind of situation where this happened, where like the branding was sort of off and they came to you and you cleaned things up?
Oh, absolutely. I was just working with an executive coach and looking at her website. All of the buttons and the navigation were things that made sense to her. They were like kitschy, cute. It didn't say hire me or profile or my resume, or things that a user would identify with and click on. So literally within an hour, we had a conversation. I went to work an hour and a half later, sent her a new idea and a new way of presenting all of the same content on her website, just by simply changing the content and the words. And it's something that we all fall short of, right? We all we're in our own heads. And she's in the process of updating her website right now. And with just those slight tweaks, you don't even need a web designer to really do it if you have a WordPress background and back end, and you can do it yourself. So it's really neat to get that type of feedback. And I think a lot of people just have to be open and willing to say, oh, yeah, you know what? I'm okay with being wrong, which comes into the leadership, right? Which is where I've been heading my business. It's been really refreshing to work with clients who are humble and ready to say, like, help me become better.
Right. Yeah, and I can relate to that. And sometimes a hard lesson to learn, right? Because sometimes we think, oh, I'm so smart. I got myself to this point in my business. I built it up to wherever I'm at. But then at a certain point, we end up maybe holding ourselves back and slowing our own growth because our thinking God is here, but our thinking maybe won't carry us the rest of the way. So that story is pretty reassuring because, sometimes when people say rebranding, what comes to mind is a huge teardown and throwing out the whole website and building it back up. So is that pretty common that maybe many times people just need to make simple tweaks and just like change up something simple like the navigation or rearrange the existing pieces as opposed to throwing it all out starting from scratch?
Absolutely. And I've taken this experience because I was always the marketing agency that people would come to after going to an agency or a freelancer that would charge them way too much money, which had helped me keep clients for 4 to 5 years for just simple projects that are after the first website. And now it really just comes down to, I mean, most people are not really looking at websites fully, right? Most people are not going to read your entire life story. So what I try to do with clients these days is to really hone in on the specifics, to be concise, and to take the content on there and repurpose it in a social media calendar, that are utilizing their talents and their expertise by sharing their thoughts and thought starters on LinkedIn or social, or maybe using images for Instagram. And I'm also a TEDx curator. I hosted so far 14 TEDx events, big events with celebrity style speakers, and I do the whole thing myself. And it's really taught me a lot about how to help leaders become more concise and to tell their stories in a more engaging way.
Well, that sounds great because I can also relate to being in that sort of situation where there was some speaker and they start to talk and they go on and on and on about all these things about their background and their degrees and the years in business. And I'm thinking, well, that's great. I'm proud of you, but get to the meat already. So so you're saying that people need to be more concise. And so how do you go about doing that? Is it just a matter of like approaching it from a newbie point of view, or like what's your thought process if someone has some sort of big long bio or a bunch of long-winded stuff? How do you go about shortening all that?
Well, I take the 10,000 foot above approach, right? So it's something, again, that most of us can't see. We need an expert. I'm kind of like a business therapist. That's kind of how I see myself, where we take a 10,000 foot approach look at ourselves, looking down at our resume, and even a short exercise is reading it out loud. I'll ask them to read it out loud, and they go on and they go on and they go on, and then they realize, well, wait a minute, no one's going to read that. So what I usually do is I actually just go to town and do the work and make it simple for them. But I also give them the tools and the tips and the advice on why it is going to be better for their business and how it can affect their profit, their and the ability for more people to want to talk to them and to talk about them to others.
Right. Yeah. And sort of like you alluded to, in this day and age with the attention span so limited, I mean, not only on the internet, but, if someone's doing a TEDx talk or speaking in person and everyone has their cell phones, I mean, it's really easy to get distracted there. And that tip there about reading out loud, I mean, that's so huge in a number of ways. And that's a thing that I need to do more. And I probably have done maybe once or twice on accident, but I was introduced maybe a few weeks ago at a speaking engagement, and I had to bring a bio, and I wrote like, I think maybe 3, maybe 4 sentences. And looking at it on the page, I was like, oh yeah, this is just going to be like a couple of seconds. And then when the person introduced me, I still don't think it was like a super long length of time, but I just kind of felt like, geez, I should have cut this down to like a third of the length it was, because I just felt like it kept going on and on and on. And even though it wasn't such a long time, it was maybe like 30 seconds. It felt like an eternity to me. And I think that thinking back on it now, it was a matter of like, when you see that text on a page, you're like, oh, it's just the words in front of me, right? I just skim through it really fast. But then when it's spoken out loud, speaking takes longer than reading. So it really like, it's such a night and day difference, right? With the written stuff and the spoken stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And even the words that we use when we write aren't the same words that we use when we speak. A lot of time, I coach every single one of my TEDx speakers, and they'll in the beginning, they'll send me their talk and they'll say, okay, read this. And I say, absolutely not. Send me a meeting invite and you're going to read this to me because I need to hear it. And, you know, a lot of the times I'll pick something up. I do not read anyone's TEDx talk when I'm, or a speech when I'm doing that. And I have a great story. I had this one client who was being awarded this big award in Central Jersey, and she was going to this big events dinner and she wanted a new bio. So I rewrote her bio in a very engaging way and she loved it. And at the event, she had no idea that they were taking the bios and reading them and making videos. And there were about maybe like 12 people that got the award alongside of her. And everyone wanted to come up to her because they read her bio out loud in the videos, and everyone else's were, like we were saying, way too long, way too drawn out, way too MBA, she did this, she did that. And it's really a refreshing way to take a look at ourselves and, you know, say that you like red wine, or say that you find 4-leaf clovers, or you have rescue cats. I mean, make it a little fun. I mean, most of us are living in such an age of too boxy, too stiff, and we really can learn a lot from just throwing our hands up in the air and surrendering and saying, well, who am I? Who do I want to be to everyone else in a new way?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. Standing out from the crowd and showing some of the personality and the silliness. And what I liked about what you said there was, well, first of all, when someone sends you their TEDx talk, you don't read it. But I liked that you didn't say, oh, well, record it and send me the recording. You said, meet me, like, I'll send you a meeting invite and we'll meet and you'll speak it out loud in front of me. So is there a reason for that? Is that like to get them to read it in front of a live person as opposed to into a recording, or is that just because?
It's my technique in having done 14 TEDx events, to actually listen for the stuff that's going to be compelling to an audience, and the stuff that's just gonna be flopped around and just people are gonna lose their insight, they're gonna lose their attention, they're gonna get on their phones, they're gonna be looking around, they're gonna start to get hungry, they're gonna want to know when the drinks are coming. So it's really just my tactic to make sure that my speakers get to that stage with the best story that they can tell, without any fluff, without any boring, with all pizzazz, and with a 1, 2, 3-part story that has a beginning, a great middle, a climax, and an end.
Super great. And I imagine that, so not only are you listening for maybe the slow parts in the story or the things that can be shortened or thrown out kind of like a stand-up comedian, but I also imagine that maybe what they've written now looks okay written, but then maybe when it's spoken, it's easier to stumble across words, or some things don't quite sound okay, and by having it spoken out, you can help smooth that out. Is that correct, or on the right track?
Oh, absolutely. I know that for myself, I do a lot of writing on LinkedIn. I just wrote an article right before we got on, and I write very deeply and I speak very engaging and I'm alive when I speak. Both of those are very different. So if I read one of my LinkedIn conversations over a YouTube video, it would be very, very deep and we would go deep. But on a video or in front of people, I really just kind of go with the flow and I get up there and I just nail it and live within the talk. So we definitely use much larger words and different words when writing than when we are speaking. And it really is just about, it's not about us. It's not about you, honestly. And that's my biggest tip for any TEDx speaker or anybody that I'm working with from a professional standpoint. It really is about the perception and the audience of they're the hero. They're the hero on what you're saying or pitching or selling. And when you can do that really well, and most of us can't, right? Because we live in our own minds and we do need the expert to help. And once we can get that outside input and really put it to work for ourselves, we can really make an impact on the audiences that we want to reach and just people in general, which makes lives professionally and personally so much better.
I agree completely. And it makes so much sense when you're talking about it now that it's about your audience and not about you, because it's, I mean, what would even be the point of you getting up on stage and you saying all the stuff that sounded great to you, but then no one else cared? And it seems like the most obvious thing, saying it, outside of it, or saying it in hindsight, but then it seems like maybe some people aren't even aware that this is a thing to be focused on. Maybe they're living too much in their own box, and they're just writing out some kind of talk and thinking, oh yeah, I seem really smart with this makes me look really good. But then maybe if they simplify things or dumb things down, or added that story structure you mentioned, the beginning, middle, end, or added fun or added jokes and did all the things that may kind of make the audience come alive, it might be more of a simplistic talk, but probably more popular, right?
Absolutely. I mean, whenever you go and hear someone talk, I mean, most of the time you can read their bio on the pamphlet or the brochure. Or if you're going to see someone speak, chances are, if you're into the topic, you're already going to have looked them up and known everything about them. So there's no need for someone to introduce themselves and what they do and where they've been and what school they went to for the first 5 seconds of the talk. Really, you just want to engage, and that plays into marketing itself. I mean, personal branding and marketing in today's world is really just about who we are as people and how we want to show up. And it really isn't about putting a suit on and just kind of looking like the guy next door. And also, it's just simplifying and not telling the whole story. We use an image of a shopping center. You go into a King supermarket or Acme or Stop and Shop, and you go into a cereal aisle and you look at 100 cereals and which one you're going to choose. So I use the same analogy in my marketing and branding and my coaching for speaking. It's, you don't have to tell the whole story. Just pick one and go with it and make it powerful.
Well, super great advice there. So just, you don't have to cover all the bases, just sort of get the job done. And something that you said a few minutes ago sparked my interest when you were talking about you, right before hopping on this call, you whipped out a quick LinkedIn article. So I'm curious about, like, what's your writing process like? Because I ask because sometimes I'll get really inspired and I'll think I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write like a 1-page article, and I get really into it, and it ends up being like 3 or 4 pages, and it still has like lots of stuff packed in, and it ends up being really tight. But I feel like I'm not super consistent about it. Like, I can't sit down every day and crank out that content, or even every week. It just kind of comes to me randomly. So do you have a way of capturing that lightning in a bottle, so to speak, of just sitting down and cranking out what you want? Do you have a process like that?
Yeah, I mean, my process this morning was simply because I had a client that was a little crazy town. In addition to my marketing business, I own a Pilates studio, and once in a while you get someone that's just a little bit outside the line. So I really just was like, wow, okay. And what I did was I took my experience with that and I wrote an article, I sat there for 20 minutes and wrote it and posted it. And it was about listening intently. So I took my experience from it, from my perspective of listening to this woman just kind of just go a little bit outside the lines, and I couldn't even get a word in edgewise. But the importance of listening intently, even to someone that doesn't make sense or will do something a little crazy, teaches us a little bit about life and about people and how to handle ourselves in every sort of situation. So my process really is to take the experiences that I have and use them as content, because they live inside of me. Someone with my energy level and my passion for business and life and leadership, whenever I experience something, I always have to kind of get it out. So most of my articles that I write are inspiration from books that I read, or just from things that take place on a daily basis that live inside of me. And if they, Wayne Dyer uses the quote all the time, don't die with your music inside of you. So my inspiration is to educate others on things that happen to me that I know very well that everyone else has seen or experienced in the same light and would like the advice on how to work with that in the future.
That's really great. So that connects with the storytelling aspect of things, right? You're not just thinking up facts and figures or thinking about some interesting idea you had. You connect it to a story. That way, it has the beginning, the middle, and end. It has the emotion. It has all the things people can relate to. It sounds like it has all, like, by using real life experiences and stories, it has all those exciting, emotional, attention grabbing ingredients as opposed to just some boring stuff, right?
Yeah, I always like to tell the individuals within my network that you're not alone. Sometimes we experience office situations or clients or proposals or contracts and dealings with others, and it doesn't always go right. And when it doesn't go right, we are in this place as a human, as how do I react, how do I respond, and a lot of times people do have that I'm alone. So my approach to working with beautiful people in business is to say that you're not alone. And I've been there, and everyone kind of gets upset or has to deal with something that's not so fun. So we're all in this together. It's just in how do we find solutions? Yesterday I wrote an article about how to the 2018 guide to calm problem solving. It's always about like a philosophical, very deep, very earth-centered way of looking at business, to make people realize that, again, like I keep saying, it's not so buttoned up. We can just learn to breathe a little bit more to really enjoy our professional and personal lives.
Yeah, totally. And I think that at least for me, and I think pretty much everyone else I've spoken to about this is that like if you have some way of expressing something, if it's writing or podcasting or cranking out videos or webinars or whatever, just by putting those feelings you have into words is almost like going to the therapist, right? It's like it helps you get clear on what you're feeling, what you're going through, how you're going to get out of it, and it's sort of like just helps you get clear on that sort of stuff as an added bonus to getting the content out there, helping people, and growing your business. And I'm really curious about, sort of, since we're on this topic, I'm curious about some of your struggles and difficulties coming up, because I mean, you made it to this point, but I'm sure that there were periods of time in your business when maybe you felt like giving up or you weren't sure what to do next. Do you have anything like that to share with us? Any like sort of real deep and raw stuff?
Absolutely. Last year when I had my marketing agency, and then I ended up getting picked up at a digital agency. So I helped a colleague run his digital agency, and then I moved into the city and I went to Tuscany. I came back and I was like, I don't want to work with you guys anymore. I really want to go back to coaching and business coaching and my marketing consultancy. And I had worked with women for years, and women CEOs, and I sat in my new apartment on the Upper West Side, and I was like, who am I going to talk to? What's my client base? I was so lost, and I really was just month after month thinking, I don't know where I belong anymore. I don't know who I want to work with or how to even charge. I used to have a marketing agency. It was easy. People used to come to me needing a brand or a website. And it took me a year, and then now I own Pilates. I came back to Hoboken. I run a Pilates studio, and I'm restarting my coaching agency. But that was a big obstacle for me. And I think that a lot of coaches and speakers and authors and even podcast hosts, run out of ways in which we can portray ourselves. And it's a very scary time when you can't find the solution. I could not find an answer for a year. And that was a big obstacle for me to say, I don't know who I want to work with. I don't know who my target audience is, because I don't really want to work with smaller entrepreneurs anymore. How do I get to the big fish? That was, I was working with entrepreneurs and startups, but now how do I get to the bigger fish? How do I get to the people who have money, that are willing to spend it, and humble enough to say, I need the help? And that was a big learning curve for me.
And how the heck did you get out of that? How did you get to the answer?
I just kept putting myself out there. I got up every day, and I just breathed, and I put out content, and I've started to achieve the client base that I wanted, just with the content that I've been putting out there, again, about leadership, about mastery, about communication. And now I'm really leaning towards working with CEOs and leaders in agencies to come in, because I had a marketing agency myself for 11 years. So I know what happens with client to clients and just proposals and different big meetings, and what happens in boutique agencies and startup agencies where you have a $5 million agency and you have 25 employees or maybe 15 employees, and you have to work together to make the clients happy. But sometimes that inter-office communication, there's huge breakdowns. So I've applied my experience in marketing to, and my leadership capabilities with all the stuff that I've read over the years about communicating intently, to meeting the needs of that type of audience. And it took, it took a lot of patience and persistence to really know that. I think at the end of the day, if someone out there who's listening is going through this, to know your worth, and to know that it's going to come, and to just be patient. But nothing comes to you, so you can't just sit there and just close your eyes and cross your fingers. You have to keep putting it out there and see what sticks. And I'm on that road, and I feel really good about it. And obviously, the TEDx work has helped, because working with, one of the founders of Viagra, and Derek Campana, who's the first man to put prosthetics on animals, who's now got a show on Animal Planet, and working with that type of caliber people, you find your worth. And for whatever it's worth out there, everyone who's listening, you just know that if you know what you know and you believe in what you can do, then there's a means to an end.
Well, that is super fantastic, and it sounds like from hearing your story that you worked your way up, because like some of those numbers that you mentioned, I mean, I couldn't even imagine like how the heck I would even go about tackling that. But it sounds like by like starting small and dealing with this agency and that agency, you learned the ropes, you picked up some skills that then you could bring as you worked your way up the ladder. And then once you got there, you had this whole all these months and years of these prior experiences, and there was no way to really jump to the ending there. But by going through these stepping stones, you kind of pick things up along the way, so you didn't have to figure it all out overnight. You figured it out over time as you were doing it. Is that right?
Yes, you don't know what you don't know, and it really is a blessing to be patient and to look upon your experience, but to also say no. I didn't want to work with just women anymore. I actually really enjoy working with men, because I'm tough, and I'm also fun and playful. And I think that the dynamic for a man to work with a woman coach, it becomes an engaging hourly experience that you're not being told what to do. And it's been a really, really, really nice transition for me to say, I don't have my marketing agency. How do I get clients again? To, I'm going to take my marketing experience and work on leadership and communication within marketing agencies to help them increase their profits and increase their productivity.
Yeah, and I can relate to having a woman coach. Like I have a woman coach right now, and I love it. And I feel like I don't know, like I'm already a man. Like I already know the man's way of thinking. I want that outside perspective. And then it's also interesting because my coach, I feel like, is used to being a little too nice, and I'm like no, you can be a little more rough than you're used to, because like I want to kind of hear it from both sides. So I can definitely relate to that. I can relate to not knowing what I don't know. And but I think that it's a really good reminder that you had in there, is that it's really important for us to remember what we want to say no to. And if things aren't working, or if we're getting tired of something, or if it's holding us back or not serving us or whatever, then we definitely need to say no. So, I mean, I love that advice. And I want to make sure that, since people have been listening to you for the past, 28, 30 minutes, that maybe their interest is piqued about the things that you do as far as your coaching and the TEDx stuff. So can you tell us about any sort of resources that you want people to check out today, like any sort of, websites, books, anything like that?
Well, they can go to my website, elizabethberryconsulting.com. I wrote a book on vulnerability for women called Own Your Vulnerability. It's available on iTunes and Amazon. I'm also working on the men's version of vulnerability. That's actually really great. It's been much more fun to work on than the women's version, and I interviewed over 100 men in the past year. So that'll be coming out soon. But I definitely look forward to speaking with anyone who's ready and willing to make a change and to discover their why.
Awesome. Yeah. And sort of the, as we've been saying in this, in our discussion here, like it's really easy to get safe, comfortable, stuck in your own bubble, stuck in the same way of thinking. And sometimes if our business is in sort of a blah period or mediocre, maybe we need that outside perspective to rebrand, shake things up, simplify, be concise, make things more exciting and entertaining for those outside audiences. So, I mean, really good advice. So everyone needs to go right now to elizabethberryconsulting.com and check out what's on that site. Check out her content, check out the book on vulnerability, and then especially check out the new book for men if you go and click and go there once that's live. And so when people go to elizabethberryconsulting.com, is there an easy way for them to contact you and reach out and see if they can hire you for coaching or something like that?
Absolutely. There's a coaching link at the top of the page. They could read a little bit about what I've done and my approach, as well as some testimonials. There's video testimonials and written testimonials. And then my email and my phone number is there. I always have my phone on me. I love picking up the phone and speaking with people, just to be clear about what everyone's needs are. And I'm always available to say hello and to help someone out.
Well, super great. So, I mean, I think that's a really good call to action there. So everyone needs to go right now to elizabethberryconsulting.com and check out the coaching link, check out those videos. But most importantly, look at that email address and that phone number. And if you want to be unlike most people and take a little bit of a chance and see what Elizabeth has for you, well, then why not pick up the phone, give her a phone call, and have a quick chat to see what your business is going through, what kind of struggles you have at the moment, and how Elizabeth can maybe help you in whatever sort of capacity that is. So elizabethberryconsulting.com, and we'll see you there. And thanks so much, Elizabeth, for stopping by and sharing some these great stories and takeaways and tips and all kinds of that fun stuff.
You got it. You have the most beautiful day. I look forward to speaking with anyone who's ready to discover their next for 2018.
Please follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/Robert Plank. That's twitter.com/Robert Plank. And while you're adding me, also like Marketer of the Day on Facebook by going to facebook.com/Robert Plank Show.